This works. All right. The button has been pressed. Now we're waiting. Waiting. This, see if it comes up.
Patiently.
There is an option to reduce the latency, but it says that the quality will be lower, so I'm
Hmm.
reluctant to push it.
I don't
Push
think
it
that
real
people need
good.
something especially high quality.
Something's happening. There it goes. It's working. Okay. Got to pause that and pop out the chat. If I could do that. And chat is out. Minimize. Okay. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Fine,
Fine. I do hear some
maybe.
noise. Is there somebody talking in the background on somebody?
It might be my family being really loud in the kitchen.
Ah, okay. No problem.
It gives it that kind of live ambiance, like a live dinner party.
Yeah. It's
Intimate. It's an intimate setting.
it's not a podcast. It's just a bunch of people hanging out at a coffee shop.
Yeah,
Well, let
why
me
not?
let me
Really
mute
gonna figure
myself
us out.
first and see if it goes away.
It does. It did. That was significant.
Yeah.
It is so much quieter now.
I just yelled
Only
at them.
family has a
So,
mute button.
oh, been looking for that for the past how many? 15 years.
All right. Let me make sure we get the Drupal up as well, because people like to talk to us via Drupal. Drupal, not Drupal, Discord. We were just talking about Drupal. Discord. Okay. All right. So is everybody ready to start? Any issues, questions?
Apparently, it's going to overtime.
Dude, I've got so many issues.
Oh, is the I didn't even
What's going
check.
overtime? Some ice hockey
50
game.
seconds left.
Oh man, this has been a hell of a playoff so far for the NHL. Did you see that game last night? The Sharks and the Golden Knights, rather. Oh my God, unbelievable, unbelievable! 4 goals on a 5-minute power play, which I'm
Wow.
just happy. I don't want to piss off any of our Vegas fans who are in the audience, but that fan base needs to be taken down
I'm
a
happy
notch.
to. I will take that job easily.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's I mean, I like the Sharks in general. They're a good franchise. But Vegas, like having such success in their first year, kind of got to the heads of a lot of people, and they just need to calm down, realize that, like, I'm from Buffalo,
We're not going
so
to shower them in praise this year.
yeah, we need a little bit of reality, a hard, cold dose of reality. So awesome. So we'll see how what happens here at the Canes and the Capitals in overtime as we speak. All right, but let's get started before we go too long here. Okay.
Are we still kind of focusing on Patreon or?
I haven't been mentioning it specifically. We still have the Patreon campaign going on, patreon.com/PCPer. One of the things is that a lot of the reward tiers were kind of related to stuff that was promised by the old crew and that we either don't have the capacity to fulfill or are just not related to us. Like some of them mentioned things like Ryan will do this for you, and it's not here anymore. We can try, but
You
so
can still visit the church. We can't guarantee you won't be arrested for break and entering, but you can still visit
exactly.
it.
Yeah, Intel corporate security is a little stricter than the old PC per security guard, which was actually just a squirrel that lived in the tree outside the door. But yeah, if you want to support us, like just in the sense of like we're not probably fulfilling those tiers at the moment, but if you want to support us, go to patreon.com/PCPer. Obviously, that would be amazing. We would appreciate that. And at some point, we should probably get back to reading the names out live as they come in, which was fun.
Be handy.
And come up with new tiers. Come
And
up with things that we want to deliver.
Exactly.
Or can
That
deliver.
the plan once we have some time. We've been in a huge like rush of spring product launches and travel, and it's just been hard keeping up with everything. But we do want to get back to offering something for that.
Like, for
Something
example, I
concrete.
could propose a $200 a week tier to keep me off the podcast entirely. You don't like me on the podcast, $200, you won't see me on the podcast.
There's
Stuff like that.
there are a
Ooh.
couple guys who would probably take, like, they would like that in
Yeah.
theory, but I can tell that they probably can't afford that. So
Put your money where your mouth is. That's all I'm saying.
yeah, so we'll look into something less hurtful and personally devastating.
It's fine.
And-
It gives me the night off, Jim. I'm secretly trying to weasel my way out of all responsibilities.
Oh no, we can't. I know where you live.
I've been trying to do that for the past 20 years, and it's been really unsuccessful.
Can't happen. We need you all. We need every one of you. But although I will say, I finally put my face on the thumbnail for one of the videos. I've been reluctant to do that because I kind of hate myself.
You know, it was a great picture. I saw that last week.
Well, it helps when you get to choose the picture.
Yeah,
but
I could tell some serious thought went into that. You might have airbrushed it a little bit.
Hey,
I'm
you
not gonna-
you were looking quite handsome, so yes, that was
I did have some digital assistance in cleaning that
Okay, I
up,
was gonna say.
but
Nice of you not to give that to us.
I finally did it. Well, I make yours worse, actually, Jeremy. I go into
I
it.
was gonna say I have never looked worse than those thumbnail pictures, as far as I know.
Oh, you've got the one where you're just doing the whole like aliens thing, but anyway, I finally put my face on a thumbnail, and it's got the lowest like ratio of any recent show. So, I mean, it's still pretty good. We got a great audience. It's still like 92% or something, but usually our like ratio is like 99, 98, 92. Whew.
I didn't even know that a like ratio was a thing, but
Yeah, it's Facebook and YouTube and their metrics. YouTube
Okay.
and their metrics. All right, let's get this going. Here we go. 3, 2. Hey everyone, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 541, being recorded Wednesday, April 24th, 2019. I'm Jim Tanis.
And I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Sebastian Peak.
And we're glad you could join us this week. It's going to probably be a little bit of a shorter show, but we've got a bunch of news that's happened in the last 6 days, I guess, because we recorded a day late last week. So let's jump in here. As I guess some housekeeping things. As always, we record Wednesday nights we try to record Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, Thursday morning, 2 a.m. UTC. And you can join us at our YouTube live page for now, although we are launching the long-awaited redesign of our website. That's going to launch not this coming weekend, but the following. So that will be live if everything goes well. And when that does happen, you'll be able to go back to pcpro.com/live, where we'll have the embedded YouTube and chat all in one handy place for you once again. We lost that when we transitioned the site over at the beginning of the year, so that'll be good to have that back. But again, that's going to be 2 weeks from now. The other thing you can do if you want to join us live is go to pcpro.com/subscribe, where you can join our mailing list, where we tell you when we go live. It's all we use it for. You'll get an email about an hour or so before a live event with the link and kind of a overview of the topics that we have planned for that night. So check that out, pcpro.com/subscribe if you want to be notified. And let's jump into this week in the news. We've got something a little unusual to start with. This is the part of the show where we normally talk about reviews. And there was a product launch this week, but we don't have a review for it quite yet. And that is the GTX 1650, the lowest cost Turing entry thus far from NVIDIA. It launched, was it yesterday, Sebastian? Or
Yeah.
Monday? Yeah, yesterday. So Tuesday it launched. But unfortunately, and we don't know exactly why yet. We think there might have been some issues with the drivers, but NVIDIA wasn't able to provide reviewers with a driver for the card ahead of launch. So we had the cards. Sebastian had a couple cards and didn't have a driver to test them. So the card launched publicly yesterday. You can go out and buy it. But and the driver came out with it, and we'll talk about that driver a little later. But we don't have the review because Sebastian wasn't able to start testing until the driver came out. So he's been busy testing, and maybe he has a little bit to talk about with us in terms of some teases of performance. But we'll have that review for you shortly. But it is worth noting that the GTX 1650 is out now at a base price of 149. So Sebastian, if you can share with us your initial impressions of this card?
Very initial because like you said, I've only had about a day. Although enterprising sites like Gamers Nexus have already finished a review because, they
Steve
just knocked
Burke doesn't
themselves out
sleep.
and worked for an entire day. No, apparently not. And the few hours I've been able to put into it, I finally got initial testing done on one of the two cards we were sent, an MSI variant. What was interesting to me is of the two cards, this is a 75-watt card, just so you know. It's kind of like the heir apparent to the GTX 1050, the card that you can drop into any system that doesn't require any kind of external power. Although the two cards that we received, one from MSI, one from EVGA, both have a 6-pin power connector. So these are a little bit higher clocked variants, have some overclocking potential. So I'll be looking at that. I haven't done any overclocking yet. Haven't even actually looked at the results yet. I finally got benchmarking done on the card as of about 9 p.m. But this is a card that has 896 of those Turing CUDA cores. So it's the same architecture as the 1660, a much lower core count. This only has 4 gigabytes of GDDR5 memory. So we're looking at lower performance and that lower price point. But as I put this all together, I'll have a better idea of exactly how it fits in. I know that AMD was definitely pushing the sort of price performance of the RX 570 against this card before it launched officially. So that's the one card I have left to get through to see how they stack up. But I am definitely curious to see how these two cards overclocked, see how close I can get them to a 1660 performance level. But that should be up tomorrow on the site. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot to talk about tonight just because we're still in the middle of it.
And we have a special guest.
So it's the attack of the kitty. She heard Patreon, and and someone said once a month she shows up, so they'll give us some money. So I think that's a good. What do you think, Rainey? I don't know, but she's not here fighting with the other cat.
Oh,
She's
take
done
what
for a
you can
month
get.
Unlike Jim's gladiators.
Oh yeah, they were brutal last week, going at it at my feet, unfortunately. But all right, so stay tuned for more from Sebastian on the 1650, and we'll have the full review up at pcper.com. So be sure to check that out. Also, continuing on with Sebastian, he has a couple cases. He's a case review machine in addition to all the other hard work he does for us every week. He's got a couple cases to review. The first one is the Fractal Design Define S2 Vision RGB. That's a mouthful.
Yeah,
Did Gigabyte name that board?
No,
no, but
case
actually,
feather?
interestingly enough, I used a Gigabyte board in this build, Josh.
Well then,
But no, this is if you've seen Fractal Design already had a Define S2. It's very similar to this. The big difference with this particular case is this has 4 tempered glass panels out of the box. And there's 2 variants of this, one with and one without RGB fans and an RGB light strip. So this one has a light strip already installed. The 3 front fans and the rear fan are 140 millimeter RGB fans from Fractal Design. So this particular one ships at $239.99, and then there's the blackout version, which has no RGB lighting at all, and that's $189.99. Like the actual internal layout of this is going to be almost identical to the Define S2 that already exists. So it's a wide open internal component chamber. It has kind of an interesting setup on the back where you have these sort of cages for your 3.5-inch hard drives instead of open trays. And those are flat against the back. So the case is a little bit more compact on the rear. There's only 23 millimeters of clearance on the back for cable routing and just a ton of space inside the actual component chamber. And we saw with the Define R6, the last case of this size that I looked at from them was a lot of space on the component side for all of the potential hard drive storage, and this just kind of cuts that out.
Would you be
puts
able
it
to,
all in the back.
let me cut in here, and I apologize. Would you be able to scroll back up a little bit, Jim? There you go. Stop. Have you ever considered being a hand model?
No, for various reasons.
I mean, look at that
one of which
poise.
I was dangling, like I'm holding the camera in one hand, I'm holding the power supply in the other. It worked, so I kept the shot. But
And did you have a participle dangling as well?
I that could
No,
have.
sorry.
I may have been talking to
Yeah,
myself.
well, anyway. But I apologize for, but yeah,
Yeah,
look at that
and for our
hand.
audio
Oh, look
listeners,
at
it's a
how pointy
picture
your
of
thumb
a
is.
hand holding a power supply. Where my
Mhm.
thumb is? It's an awkward stance, Josh. I didn't want to talk about it.
But you're
Let's just move
you're
past.
gripping a little too hard. You can see the white on the
Yeah, you could
flesh
see
there.
the white of my
Yeah, you got to protect
It was
those
awkward.
assets.
It was
It's an
awkward. You know what
investment.
it's like to try to use a DSLR with your non-dominant hand
You
while
don't know
holding a
what
power
it's
supply?
like.
What? Isn't that called the friendly stranger?
Oh, my DSLR has seen it all, has felt it all over the last 5 years. It's a really nice, clean build when it all goes together. It's
I do have
it's
one
kinda
serious
neat.
question, though.
Yeah.
And scroll back up to that last picture, Jim.
Please don't show the hand
Can you
again.
change the RGB colors, or are they just gold?
Yes. No. It's hey, it's
Well,
RGB,
yeah,
Josh.
it wouldn't
That
be
means it
RGB
can
if it
be
was.
yeah.
Well,
I
it's
happen to
all
have
the
it set to
pictures
this.
they've been having that gold aura, gold glow, and that matches your
Okay.
motherboard really nicely. I just didn't know.
Mhm. Here's why. Because all the fans and the RGB strip all have that common RGB header cable coming out of them. So I daisy chained those all together and then plugged it into the motherboard. The motherboard was already set to this sort of gold color from the last review I did. So I just left it alone. And the CPU fan and the motherboard colors and then everything in the case just automatically popped up the same color when I powered it on the first time, so I left it. But you can set this
Boy,
to any
that's
color you
handy.
want. I just happen to have set this using the sync, like the RGB sync software with my motherboard to this color because it's completely neutral as far as I know. It's not blue for Intel, it's not red for AMD, it's not green for Nvidia. So I basically alternate between this and purple because I don't think that shows any bias, but who knows? It could be backfiring. Maybe gold is, the Cyrix color or something. But I'm pro Cyrix. I don't make any bones about that. Pretty
So
quiet
wrapping up the
case.
review, how is it?
Yep. Pretty quiet case. It has all the stuff you'd want from a Fractal Design case. You get these basically to be utilitarian, to have all the space for everything you'd ever want. It has tons of different configuration options with radiators and fans and things. This has a interesting design with the top where you can swap out top panels, but you also swap out top brackets, so you can either create additional fan and radiator room on the top or take it out and just have a nice clean look into your components with the smoked glass panel it comes with. And just little things like plenty of front case IO, something that's a little bit forgotten with some cases these days. This has a full complement. It has USB 2.0, 3.0, 3.1 Gen 2, Type C. And if you like tempered glass, this is basically your Scandinavian design, Fractal Design take on this. And if you don't like tempered glass, they have the non-tempered version of this that costs a lot less. But with or without RGB, we just happen to, of course, get the RGB version for this review. But with or without RGB, it provided enough airflow. These are never going to be the super high airflow cases because it's got the solid front panel. There was enough clearance that the front fans are not being suffocated. You do have airflow. It's just that the fans with my default fan profile from this motherboard did spin up a little bit more than a couple of other recent cases just because they had to get the cooling. So, I think where I was approaching around 40 decibels under load, which is noticeable but not bad. You have to make a little bit of a trade-off there for the style if you have some warmer components inside. And
The price
speaking
is
of
something
cases,
else, though.
what?
$240 for this thing.
Yeah, that's a lot for Fractal.
But if you
too,
go with
and
the
I noted that.
non-RGB, it's $190.
Yep.
So it's $50 difference.
Yeah.
For the white strip and the LEDs.
Yeah, but
Yep.
if you think about it, adding 4 pretty quality RGB fans to that price, you're going to go over the 250, or the 240 rather.
Yeah, if you were to buy the blackout and then choose to upgrade it later, the light strip's probably $20. The fans are probably 25 each, unless you buy them in quantity. So it seems pretty fair. If you look at where Fractal's been with other cases, the Define R6 has been sitting around 149 for a while, and I've seen it on sale for a little bit less than that. And that's a tremendous bargain. So if you have no interest at all in RGBs, the R6 is still their, flagship kind of affordable premium mid-tower offering. And then the
And you
blackout
just
version of
lose
this is kind of
one
like a
plated
step up.
glass too, don't you? Is it one like
Yeah,
you lose the top one? Do you lose the back as well?
That I'm not sure about. I didn't see
Okay.
it wasn't up this morning when I posted the review. I did not see if the blackout version has the glass rear side panel as well. Really dark tint though, so you can't really see any kind of cable mess back there because it's so dark.
Nice.
Moving very quickly along, there was a couple more case reviews that went up in the last couple of weeks since I've last been on the podcast. It's been like 3 weeks now. One of them was from Cooler Master. Check out the review of the Q500L if you're interested in a very small case. It's a micro ATX size case that still holds an ATX motherboard inside. And this thing is pretty crammed together when you use a full-size board like I did, but there is room for a full ATX power supply as well. You don't have to use an SFX if you don't want to, because it has an ATX bracket and the power supply kind of sits along the inside of the front of the case, which of course does partially obstruct airflow. So if you were to use a smaller power supply, probably a little bit better numbers out of this, but interesting overall design. It can be laid horizontally. It has these magnetic filters for the top and front and a filter on the bottom, and it's only $59. So if you have toyed around with the idea of ATX in a smaller package, I've seen a couple of these on the market before, and this one I thought was really well put together, feels very solid. The only thing I could even really note about it was the plastic side panel kind of does feel cheap, but we're hitting a price point here. So if they had a more expensive version of this with tempered glass, I think that would be a nice option as well. But check out the review to see some of the interesting features of this design. I don't know if any of you guys have any interest in cramming ATX into something that's about 15 by 15 by 9, but you don't get a lot smaller than that because you're talking about a board that's a little under 13 by 10. And I think you could actually technically cram EATX in this, but then you would have to somehow externally mount the PSU.
Yeah, the power supply is like the limiting factor of how small you can fit.
It's the only thing on the inside the component chamber. If you take and the bracket comes out, so if you take that PSU out and were to somehow, cram a SFX power supply in there somewhere, it's doable. You could put an even bigger board in here. But speaking of small form factor, this one was interesting. It's the Sentry 2.0. It was a crowdfunded case. It got funded. It's the second version of this, what they call the console sized case. Very, very small. It takes the total. We've seen like the lower limits of case volume before with the N case M1 and the Dan cases A4 SFX, I believe is the model. And those were around 7.2 liters total volume. This one's 6.9. And it cuts it down even further because it's using a horizontal setup, and it's like side by side. You have a GPU on one side, and then the motherboard and the SFX power supply share the other half. So it's about as small as you can even make a case that holds full-size components like that. One of the other differences between the other cases I mentioned and this one is this is steel, but it pretty much has to be kind of as hollow as it is. It would be a little bit different internally if they had to brace aluminum for something that's this narrow and wide. But it's interesting. It definitely is not cheap. This is on the high side of those crowdfunded cases at $260. What the asking price was on the Indiegogo campaign. But
that's a few dollars.
It is. So to celebrate,
but look at how
the fact
compact
that
that
it's
is.
case. Yeah, and look what I put in there.
You're not going to find this anywhere else.
Not really.
You know,
No,
I
mean,
always
there's a couple
think that
of
when I see,
similar.
you know what, when I see the picture, scroll back up, Jim, por favor. When I see that SSD, I always think that you outline it post in
It
red
really looks
just
like it.
to highlight. It's just that perfect color. It's like people, you know, doing arrows, pointing at crap that you don't really want to pay attention to, but they think is important.
Yeah.
Well,
You do that every
Yeah,
day with this
that's what
it's a
SSD.
rounded
Corsair.
rectangle that I add in Photoshop. Yes,
Yeah.
that's of course just it's a
Nice.
silver SSD that I
Okay,
color
I feel
red.
better now.
Hmm
But
Corsair
anyway.
designers are looking exactly for that look, standing out.
It pops.
Oh yeah.
And so does putting an RTX 2080 Ti and an i9 9900K inside of a case that has a
How
30
does that puppy
47
sound?
millimeter. It sounds like whatever you put in it. I mean, the fan that I used was not exactly up to the task, but it tried very hard. And at 3,000 RPMs with a 92 millimeter fan, torture testing that i9 CPU. Yeah, it was like 52 decibels. So don't do that. Use a more reasonable build if you get a case like this, even if it is an
No,
expensive
just
case.
get one of those nice big house fans, lay it in its back, and then put this case on top of it.
You know, someday
Yeah.
we may have to do the box fan computer case build, but
Yeah.
not today. But yeah, there's cases
Man,
galore
I
at the
remember
website.
back in the day, Jeremy Alford from All 3D, or I can't remember, that he lived in Indiana, and it got to be minus 20, and he went outside in an overclocking experiment with the Celeron 300 to see how far he could push it. And he had a box fan blowing into that thing outside at 20 below. It was really, he didn't get very far with it, but it was an epic try. So I want to see you do that. You're in Michigan, right? It gets cold.
It does. It gets very cold. I've thought about doing the thing where you
Okay.
get like a vent hose and you run it out your window and then putting like
Pretty much what he did.
blowing directly across the system, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, since it's summer,
Getting
Your
less
wife would
adventurous
be
the older
so
I get.
happy.
but you can't do that until winter. So for the summertime, what you need to do is integrate your water cooling loop into your toilet's reservoir.
Okay, Linus.
Hey, porcelain stays surprisingly cool, as anyone who's ever sat down on a toilet, even in the middle of summer, can attest.
And I'm pretty sure that was Ghetto Mods that did that back in the day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought a Linus video did something with bathroom fixtures and
He may
Water
have as
cooling.
well.
but
Did you see that guy? I mean, it was probably about 15 years
Oh, it's gotta
ago
be.
when water cooling
I'm
was
trying to
still
think of
going.
a Google
He put an 80-gallon tank and he buried it in his backyard, and that was his cooling reservoir, and it just stayed at, you know, like 56 degrees all year round. I don't know if you do you remember that at all? And it, you know, all the tubing and everything like went through a window.
wow. Well,
It was insane.
if you don't have anyone in the house telling you not to do that, then
Exactly.
I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so that's three interesting cases, all well rated by Sebastian. So check out the full reviews at PC Per. And he's also, you've got some additional ones we don't think we talked about even that are up there from the last month or so. So lots
Possibly, yeah.
lots of case reviews. If you're looking for a case of any kind, compact, full size, RGB, we got you covered. Excuse me. All right. Let's move on. So into the news. This week we saw Intel make a few announcements. They first of all, and most interestingly, they launched their 9th gen mobile parts, their 9th gen Core series mobile parts. They had a I guess it was a press call last week, and then they launched them on Tuesday morning. So this is in a way it's big, in a way it's the same old story. This again continues just like we saw on the desktop side. This is still 14 nanometers. It's what are they? 14 nanometer plus now. I think 3 pluses. So same underlying architecture, but just like we saw on the desktop, bringing additional improvements, including upping the mobile core and thread count to 8 cores, 16 threads at the highest end, which is pretty significant. The performance jump on that at a 45 watt TDP is impressive. And let me see if I can find the parts here. So you can see here's the list, the lineup. They launched their i5, i7, and i9 SKUs. So at the top end with the i9 9880H and 9980HK, with the K being unlocked, of course, you've got 8 cores, 16 threads, base clock of either 2.3 or 2.4 gigahertz, boosting to 4.8 or 5 gigahertz for that unlocked K part. 16 megabytes of cache, 45 watt TDP. And then looking further down the line, and this is, I think, important too, because when AMD launched some of their Ryzen parts, they and us made the point of saying, well, they're all multi-threaded, because Intel on the desktop has gotten away with or gone into using non-multi-threading on some SKUs. But with this generation, all of the parts they've thus far announced in that i5, i7, and i9 range are all multi-threaded. So you've got the i5s at 4 cores, 8 threads, the i7s at 6 and 12, and base clocks in the low to mid 2 gigahertz range, boosting into the, as low as 4.1 gigahertz, and for the i7s up around 4.5, 4.6. So a nice range of performance to start. Obviously, we don't have pricing because these are mobile parts, so we've got to wait for the OEMs to get these into their gaming and productivity laptops. So we'll see there. But I don't know. Was anyone surprised to see that all the parts were multi-threaded, or surprised about any of the other specs here?
I'm worried that it's an HK.
Okay.
I don't like my CPU to be branded Hunter Killer already.
Oh,
That's how you
okay.
get Skynet.
Sure.
That's a lot of threads for the top end. It's a lot of cores.
Yeah,
and it's got a pretty decent boost, but you got to wonder how to fit in that TDP. How often does it hit that one with how many cores?
Well, so it's going to hit single core at 5. That's the rated.
That's fast for mobile.
Sure. And as we'll see, especially with like Asus, which we'll talk about shortly, they've had to, they've kept this in mind in their designs, and more companies are coming out with more exotic cooling solutions for their laptops. Repositioning the vents, using different types of fans, using sort of like the Max Q style lift, where you open the lid and the bottom pops down and adds ventilation in the rear. So, cooling is a concern. Power draw is a concern when you push these. But having the option at that performance level, and we'll see. We don't have any of these in hand. We have no laptops to test these. This was basically a paper launch where they gave us the SKU, or they gave us the information. Their partners are announcing their products, but nothing thus far to actually test these. Although, again, we kind of know what to expect. Obviously, adding those additional cores and that additional frequency is going to result in some performance improvement. But like I said, we're still operating on the same stuff as 8th, and even going back to 7th in terms of the core underlying architecture. In terms of graphics, it's still the UHD 630, so nothing new there for the integrated graphics option. So Intel, it's good to see that there's some additional options. They've squeezed that additional performance out of the top end, and we'll see how that works in practice. But I think we're still waiting here for Intel. We don't know when that 10 nanometers is actually going to hit, or when that next major leap will come. So I don't know. Any other thoughts on this, guys, in terms of the performance or the specs?
It should be nice. They're probably going to be decent quality mobile parts, and they'll sell a bunch more of them than AMD. But it's going to be interesting to see when they actually transition to 10 nanometer, if that brings any improvements over the really enhanced 14 nanometer, other than, just getting that die size down in terms of, efficiency and transistor switching speed. I think the 14 nanometer plus or whatever that is now is probably going to be much better than the initial 10 nanometer offerings. But yeah, they're they're kind of struggling a little bit still in manufacturing. I'm surprised they didn't have any other contingencies over the past 5 years than what we see being delivered right now, to get them where they still have a process lead over their competition. And AMD's coming out with their 7 nanometer stuff here in the next month or two, at least going to show us. And even though I don't think that AMD is going to get a big performance jump and just pure clock speed, they're going to be able to push out a lot of processors at that small of node as compared to what Intel can do. And so in theory, when they're using these multi-chip packages, AMD can provide a lot more cores, still provide good TDPs and power draw, and be able to produce as much as really they want, or as much as TSMC allows them to. Yeah, it's going to be real interesting, because there was other leaks today about another roadmap from Intel and some of their not consumer type stuff, but other products wouldn't be transitioning to 10 nanometer until 2022, which is a long ways away. But a lot of the consumer things, I think, are going to go 10 nanometer a whole lot sooner than what that roadmap kind of specifies.
Yeah. So we'll see. It'll be interesting, and I think in terms of, like you mentioned, Josh, not having a backup plan. Obviously, it's pretty clear now that they had to start over at some point in their development of their approach to 10 nanometers, and this is, I think this release was planned and now implemented with them realizing that misstep. So I think this was to be expected. I read some comments in response to this of, I can't believe it, it's another one without another one at 14. Well, I think obviously this was not expected to be anything other than that, but as you said, they're sure getting good at 14 nanometers. They've sure figured that out. They've got very, very good efficiencies, and they've got that down. So we'll see. It'll be interesting
work on their naming.
To test these. Work on their naming.
Muscle books.
Oh yes. Well, I don't know where exactly, if that was entirely Intel's doing, but yeah, the muscle book product category name is a little bit yeah, I don't know.
It's if you're listening to this, it's worth watching the video just for Jeremy's disapproval.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, also just quickly, staying with Intel, they also announced their expansion of 9th gen desktop, which was also, sort of expected, because what they launched last fall was a very limited range of products in terms of product segmentation. And so we expected them to launch some additional SKUs. I don't know if I expected them to launch this many additional SKUs, 25 new options at all the various price points and performance points. And if you're looking at the video here, you can see we've got a chart here that they gave us. The dark blue, the lighter blue is what was existing in the lineup, and the dark blue entries are all the new ones. And so they've got new at the i9 level, basically at every level, including now Pentium Gold and Celeron versions of 9th gen parts. They all have various performance levels, obviously different RAM support, different integrated graphics options, but they all support Optane memory. As we saw last month, I think it was, or earlier this month, Intel announced that Celeron and Pentium Gold systems would also support Optane, so that's continuing here. So if you're into Optane, any part you buy is going to work with it. But man, this is this is a lot of market segmentation. It seems a little bit insane. Obviously, there's some product categories that they're hitting with some of these parts, but 25 additional SKUs. So that is a lot of options there. You guys got any thoughts on the expansion of 9th gen Core for desktop?
I'm wondering what's driving all these SKUs. Is it OEMs? Does Intel really think that they can have such a granular cut of the marketplace that they can do what $20 intervals in between? That's just a lot of SKUs. That's a lot of different branding and packaging. And do you really
Yeah.
get that much out of it? I don't know. That's a lot of big questions in there. And they obviously they hire people who do statistical analysis and product management and all of that stuff to come up with these answers. And so it's a little strange, and it almost causes consumers to get more pissed off, because I don't know why they do it. But yeah, it's if you look at it's like, what's the difference between these SKUs? It's a couple of bucks, but what do I really get? I mean, as compared to, like, the AMD 2600, which is all the threads but much lower clock, much lower boost, and then you've got the 2600X for $30 more or however much, and you've got faster clocks, and you've got potentially faster overclocking, and you've got unlocked performance and all of those things. But when you throw 25 desktop SKUs at the wall, what the hell sticks?
Yeah,
paralysis of choice is a thing where you just sort of get confused and frustrated and stop doing what you were doing. Then you'll get AMD and it's like, oh, got 2, maybe 4 SKUs to choose from, and they're very clear. And I don't think many people are budgeting. It's like, oh, I can afford $18 more, but not 25, so I need that extra one in between. It seems too much, unless there's some sort of a pre-built, like Josh said, there's some reason from the OEMs and the manufacturers that want this.
I mean, I get that for sure. I think that if for somebody who's going to be building their own PC, like our audience and the enthusiast audience, they're probably going to be either buying the i5 and i7 and i3 parts that were announced last fall. Uh, there might be interest with this launch at the Pentium Gold, because that's a good option for like some of these budget builds, or even the Celeron in some cases. That middle range of all these sort of non-K i3, i5 SKUs, I don't know if that's going to be something people would even shop for. I'm not even sure which of these SKUs is going to be commercially available as like a go and buy it at Newegg kind of part. And so I think for that market, if it's got to be the OEMs, I don't know, either they're asking for it or Intel's forcing it on them. Not sure which direction, but at that point, they're selling to consumers a PC at a basically a price level or a performance level that's not identified by the processor part. They're, well, this is your good, better, best kind of segmentation, and they can, they're going to be volume customers, or entry level consumer parts that you can buy from Dell and HP and stuff like that. So I don't know if that's going to be confusing to customers, because they're not going to be looking at that spec, or if they do see that spec, they're not going to know to shop around and compare it. So I don't know, but yeah, it's a surprisingly large number, and you're right. I think that AMD's market presentation with their simple product lineup is more appealing, just from a clarity standpoint. But
now
we'll
they've
see.
muddied the waters, because they've got the 50th anniversary edition of 2700X coming out.
Yes, that's right.
Have
They
no
do.
idea what it
Yeah.
adds.
It's a
It's
special
got a pretty
box.
box.
Yeah, it's a special box.
Lisa Sue signed something in there for you. Maybe.
Is she
I don't
going to
know.
give you a voucher if you decide to trade up for the new part that comes in like a month or two?
What do you think
I
she
would
is?
have a very hard
EVGA?
time. I know. I was like, the timing seems a little odd. I saw that too. The 50th anniversary of AMD is this year. Why not just wait and have a very special version of one of the Ryzen 3000 parts with the 50th anniversary box?
Hey, maybe they will.
Yeah, maybe. Or
But they
maybe
have to make. It was what, April? End of April?
Mhm.
early May when AMD was founded 50 years ago. I can't remember. But
I
you
don't
got to
know.
have a SKU for that date. I don't know.
Do you have to have one? Okay.
Hey, anyone here who's attended, has a degree in marketing? Anybody? No?
Hey,
Okay.
hey, Jim, don't be like that.
Ah. All right. Well,
Armchair marketing is a vital part of our economy.
It's as
Podcast.
effective
Yeah.
as real marketing.
it actually it might be. It might be. All right. Let's take a look now, sort of related to those Intel announcements, at least the Intel mobile announcements. A ton of companies obviously refresh their laptops with these new ninth gen parts. One of them I got to visit. That was Asus. They had an event in Manhattan last week. Was it last? I've lost track of time. Recently, I think it was last week, and they had a full refresh of pretty much their entire gaming laptop line, and some pretty interesting updates. Obviously, they're all featuring these new ninth gen Intel parts, but they've got some new designs and some interesting features that look pretty cool. So um, the there's a ton of stuff here. Basically, they've uh, segmented their Zephyrus lineup, which when the Zephyrus first launched, it had the weird design, if you remember, where the keyboard was in the very front and it was this very deep laptop and it was just blank space back there for the cooling. And that was their high-end Zephyrus. And then they had a low-end Zephyrus that was more of a traditional line, or I guess a mid-range Zephyrus. Now they've got high-end Zephyri, whatever, with the traditional layout, because that initial design was just not practical. Like you couldn't take that into a meeting and look like just get away with, it would look too weird. So now they've got this Zephyrus S line, which is their top of the line. It's the GX 502. It's got ninth gen i7 parts, a traditional layout, RGB keyboard and RGB lighting around the edge of the case and for the logo and stuff. And they've got calibrated screen options up to 240 hertz refresh rate, up to RTX 2070 graphics, up to 32 gigs of RAM, up to a terabyte of dual M.2 NVMe storage. So you can do RAID 0 if you want. The standard I/O kind of stuff, because this isn't an ultra thin or anything. And so it's got, several USB ports, audio, HDMI, it's a good selection of ports. Battery life is better. They say up to 7 hours of productivity. I think it was web browsing. But again, it's a gaming laptop, so you're not buying it for all day battery life. But it's not going to die on you within 20 minutes of pulling it off the charger, so that's good. And then they've also introduced additional mid and lower end Zephyrus systems. The GU 502, the Zephyrus M GU 502, that just has lower graphics and processor options, only up to RTX 2060 on that as well. But still 32 gigs of RAM, dual M.2 NVMe support.
It's got a Lenovo look to it almost.
Yeah,
Apart from the RGB.
And then if you don't want the garish RGB, the Zephyrus G is just white lighting. It's still a lighted logo for the or a lighted color for the logo, but just a nice simple. I think they called it a more subtle design. And with this one though, it's a Ryzen 7 3750H part for your CPU and up to GTX 1660 Ti for the graphics. So AMD, Team Red folks, this is an option for you. They've also got Ryzen processor options in their tough lineup as well. So nice systems here. They've got the Scar and the Hero 3 systems, which are now identical except for the color. I believe the Scar is black. No, the Hero is black. The Scar is a gray color, gunmetal gray. And these ones are cool. They have RGB around the base, and it's not too bad. It doesn't look terrible. It looks okay, surprisingly. Kind of nice, actually, if you pick the right colors there. Another key interesting feature with this is they call it the ROG Keystone. This is a little fob thing, I guess you'd call it, that plugs in, and you'd have an individual fob that ties to your profile and automatically enables your game settings, Windows settings, things like refresh rate, position of windows, things like that, and also can unlock a encrypted hidden storage volume on the drive. And they're positioning this as like for esports teams where the teams share laptops for events, which I didn't know was a thing because I'm not into esports, but apparently that's a thing. And you'd each have a key, and then no matter what system you walked up to, you put your key in, and it automatically logs you into Windows and sets up your Windows and your gaming software with your profiles. So that's pretty cool. And this is launching with this series, but they're looking to expand it and looking to also add additional features to make it more useful for like home users, enterprise, schools, things like that. On an ROG laptop, I don't know if the market is as wide there, to really take advantage of it, but this is something they could pioneer here and bring to their more consumer or productivity devices as well. So it's an interesting little kind of security and personalization feature. There's also the Strix, which also features the lighting around the base. This and the Scar and Hero were designed in collaboration with BMW DesignWorks. Asus and BMW's DesignWorks teams did the new design for these. And then, of course, there's the Tough series, which as of this year, we talked about this at CES, Tough is now their sort of entry-level gaming. And these feature Ryzen parts for the CPU. And they're nice notebooks. They're at lower prices, but they still kind of maintain that tough, durable feel. And then, of course, there's the mothership, which they launched at CES, which has just been updated to 9th gen processors. Same specs in almost every other category. This is their pseudo portable monster thing that kind of, it's like a monitor that stands up with a keyboard that pops out. Very expensive, very powerful, kind of an aspirational product. I'm not sure how practical this would be for most people.
3.5 terabyte M.2 NVMe's and RAID 0.
Yeah,
that doesn't sound dangerous at all.
Well, as long as you're using proper data backups, it's fine. Data security.
It can fail faster than any RAID before.
Yeah. In terms of software, they announced this thing called ROG Intelligent Cooling, which is what they're calling sort of their optimization between hardware and software to let you as a user pick your mode. So for some of those high-end Intel parts that we talked about, like the high-end K part, you can go to Turbo, which will let you run it at beyond stock speeds, but it'll just be loud and you won't get as much battery life if you're on battery. Or you can say, okay, I'm going to the library to study, go down to silent, performance drops, but it stays cool and quiet. And these are just an on-the-fly switch that you toggle through the Asus software. And that's available on multiple SKUs, their Mothership, Strix, and Zephyrus systems. So overall, I liked the designs. The designs in person. I'm not a big fan of gaming laptops in general. I think they went a little too crazy with the RGBs and the aggressive styling. But all of these seemed, even though there was RGB galore, it didn't seem garish. It seemed, almost kind of nice. And it was, the materials were nice in the hand. They were sturdy. There's a lot of sort of a carbon fiber kind of style to the finishes on some of these. Nice sculpted edges, good, the vents look clean, and they just overall, almost every system had a very nice, clean look to it where you wouldn't feel out of place taking it to a boardroom for a meeting or something. And then obviously in terms of the gaming styling, it still maintains that ROG look. The only thing I had a little reservation about is the bright glowing Asus logo on the lid, because it's bright red. I mean, it is RGB controllable, but by default it's very bright and very it stands out quite a bit. But everything else seemed pretty nice. These are nice updates. I'm hoping to get some hands-on time. We were in a showroom, so we could look at them and touch them, but couldn't really pick them up and walk around and put them through their paces. So I want to get a couple of these in to review and see how they look. But overall, very nice updates from Asus for their ROG lineup. And these are all launching this quarter. So check. We don't have exact availability. They said a couple of the systems would be available today at Best Buy, but my local Best Buy did not have them. So I don't know what the rollout plan is there, but you should be seeing these show up shortly. Just if you're not sure which generation you're looking at, just make sure if it has a 9th gen Intel part, it's one of the new ones. So be on the lookout for those. Anybody here use an Asus gaming laptop? No?
Not
Yeah.
currently. I have. They this is a pretty radical redesign though. Although we've seen thinner and thinner designs with like the Max Q and that sort of thing. The last one I had hands on with kind of resembled like a sports car, like the huge rear end and the giant exhaust. So
Mhm.
it was
Remember the
very, very
Ferrari
chunky, like
branded
too much.
Acer laptops?
Yeah, I think I think
Yeah.
Ryan had one in the old office. I think there was one in the
Yeah.
back room
Was it
there.
Acer? Okay. I
It
know
was
I had
Acer, and
there was an
then Asus
MSI
did
one, but
Lamborghini, didn't he?
okay.
I can't remember who
That was
did
a
the
thing for a
Lamborghini.
while.
Yeah.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
was
my
certainly
laptop is
Well, we can blame
an
BMW
Intel
for it.
Ultrabook.
Intel Ultrabook.
Stop interrupting me, Jeremy. You and your
Fine.
Canadian packets are getting so late. Anger. Yeah, no, my laptop is this, kind of one-off Intel designed Ultrabook that was a proof of concept. So yeah, I'm so out of the loop in laptops, it's not even funny.
Yeah, there was certainly a period where gaming laptops went crazy with the designs, and I'm glad to see them bringing it back, getting that power, but keeping it subtle. And just quickly speaking of that, like I said, there were a ton of companies that updated their laptops. In terms of who contacted us with their info, we heard from MSI. They had a range of their gaming laptops all updated, both with ninth gen Intel parts, as well as the new 1660 mobile part, the GTX 1660 for laptops. So that also launched this week. So those are available there, different models, and you can check out MSI's website for their complete specs. And then Acer as well, of course, updated not only their gaming laptops but their creative laptops, the Aspire series, which is sort of like the artist and designer focused model. So some good options there if you're an Acer fan, and at good prices, starting as low as I think $799 for some of these. But yeah, those are the laptop updates that we saw. Obviously, there's a ton of others. I know Razer did their updates. Dell has stuff coming out. So check when you're buying, if you're in the market for a laptop now, check to make sure you're getting those ninth gen parts. Or if you're not, make sure you're getting a discount for getting the older stuff, for sure. But all right,
What
now
are these companies going to have left for Computex? I feel like there's been
Ryzen.
so many new laptops just in the last. Well, that's true.
Yeah.
It's going to be all AMD all the time at Computex.
Yeah, I
On
mean, I
30
think
different
that's
Intel models.
well, that's true. Intel could
each
always
SKU.
just Intel could just start
They can
segmenting
throw
these
another
SKUs
15
launching at
SKUs.
Computex.
Yeah.
Yep.
50-cent segmentation.
All right, we're going to take a quick break now, and we're going to hear from our sponsor this week, which is Clear. Now, you may not have heard of Clear. They've been around for a few years now. In fact, they were out a few years ago in their original implementation. They're back now with a new service, and with Clear, Clear is all about getting you where you need to go faster. That's pretty much the core of the message. Because for better or worse, security screening is now a part of the experience at public venues like airports and stadiums. And at the same time, biometric security, using you as the password, is becoming more common. Things like fingerprints and retina scans and stuff like that. And one company is at the forefront of that transition to helping us get where we want to go faster through biometric security, and that's Clear. Clear is, like I said, it helps you get through security faster at places like airports and stadiums. It replaces the need for physical ID cards, using your eyes and fingertips instead. So that means you get through those security lines, reach your gate or your seats without the anxiety of missing your flight or missing the kickoff. Signing up is easy. You go online, create your account, and then head to a Clear location. Once you're there, a Clear ambassador helps you finish the enrollment process, and then you can immediately start using Clear. And the way this works is you go to a place that has a Clear location. There's the normal line, and then there's the Clear line. You go to the Clear line, you scan your fingers or look into the retina scanner. Because you're enrolled, it clears you through, hence the name Clear. And then a Clear Ambassador takes you right up to the security line where you get through and right through into the venue, whether it's the airport terminal or the stadium. And right now it's available at over 40 airports and stadiums across the country, with more being added every day. And for me personally, even if Clear is not available at like your local airport, because when I started using the service, it wasn't. It's not here in Cincinnati. But if you travel a lot, it's still worth it because it's at the airports you're going to be traveling to. And so if you're a frequent traveler, you go to, you're returning from a flight. Like for me, I was at San Francisco. I'm running a little bit behind. I'm looking at the security line. It's a mile long. I go up to the Clear checkpoint or Clear, I don't know what you call it, the clear line. I scanned my fingers and I was through security in 5 minutes. It's unbelievable. I mean, not every time is it going to save you an hour, but it only takes one. It only takes one of those like moments where you're running late and the security line is just around the door, around the corner, and you get through in minutes. It's just that one time, and it makes it so worth it. Plus, family members can be added at a discount rate, and children of Clear members are for free. Children under 18 can be enrolled for free when they're traveling with you. So you don't have to separate from your family or go through the regular line if you're traveling with someone, as long as you've enrolled them with you. Clear has made an immediate improvement to my travel experience, and we really want you to try it for yourself. We've got a deal that we talked to them about here. So PC Per listeners can get 2 months for free, absolutely free. Try it out. Travel as much as you want, go through as many checkpoints as you want with Clear for 2 months free. Just go to clearme.com/PCPer and use offer code PCPer when you sign up. That's CLEARMME.com/PCPer. That's CLEARME.com. I'm sorry, I think I misspoke already. CLEARME.com/PCPer and use offer code PCPer. Clearme.com/PCPer. I'll get it right one of these days. It's really an incredible service if you travel frequently, if you have season tickets to the stadium to see your sports team or go to concerts or anything. Check it out. 2 months for free. We thank Clear for their sponsorship of the PC Perspective podcast, and I personally thank them for saving me tons of time in the last month. I mean, they've probably saved me 2 to 3 hours in the last month getting through security at airports, and that's time I would have lost completely or been stressed out without them. So check that out. clearme.com/PCPer. All right, back to the show. So we are continuing on here. We've got
one real quick, Jim.
Yes.
Do you have to take an e-meter test to get Clear?
No. This is not affiliated with any nonsense.
Gotcha.
Can you pay them extra to be separated from your family and children?
You don't even have to pay extra. You can just choose to say, okay, kids, go in that line and I'll see you in an hour. And then you can get through security and have a drink in peace while they stand in line for you.
This sounds valuable.
It is incredibly awesome. And just like I said, 2 months for free. Just give it a shot. If you're going to be traveling somewhere, it's amazing. So, checking out the next story here. As we mentioned before, there was the 1650 launch, and the drivers were missing for that this week, but those drivers did launch. That's driver 430.39, GeForce Ready, Game Ready driver. And one of the things it added was support for the 1650, but it also added, in addition to the usual like game stuff, in this case it was Mortal Kombat plus a few different games where it improved performance. The other big feature was that it added 7 new monitors to NVIDIA's G-Sync compatible program. Now, if you don't recall, this is the program where they launched it, I think at CES, so a few months ago, where you can use your FreeSync monitor with your NVIDIA card to get variable refresh, basically G-Sync without the G-Sync in the monitor. And you can use it with any FreeSync monitor, although they only approve it in terms of like guaranteeing a certain experience with specific displays. And they had a list to launch. They've added some over time to that. And with this launch, they've added 7 additional displays. Those are the Acer KG271, Acer XF240H, Acer XF270H, AOpen 27HC1R, Asus VG248, 248QG, Gigabyte Aorus AD27QD. That's a big one because that's Gigabyte's, I think, first monitor that they launched earlier this year as well. And LG 27GK750F. Those are a big mouthful of letters.
Is this a product list or a vision test?
Both.
And
It's
Jim,
both.
you didn't use those subtitles.
Yeah, I'm not doing the subtitles.
Bidum bjakapucker, bibim perpekatix, and
Yes, I'm not. Yeah, so you can see the full list. I'm not sure exactly with Acer in those additional letters. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know exactly what differences those indicate. It might be regional, but they don't seem to matter. If you just search the first set of letters and numbers, you'll find the monitor. So,
and notice how both
check that out.
AOpen and LG are starting to copy them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not a good trend there. We need
Monitors
more.
are getting bigger so they can fit
Gigabyte.
more characters around the screen.
Yeah, Gigabyte's still rocking the at least initially including the a product name, the Aorus brand. So that's good for them. Good on them. But check out the list at PC Per, or you can go to NVIDIA's site. NVIDIA has a list of all of the G-Sync compatible displays that you can see to check there. And it's great to see this program continuing. I think we were all a little apprehensive when they announced it in terms of how dedicated they'd be to supporting it. And so far, they're doing a great job. They've added support for more and more displays over the months here of this year. And there's quite a number of G-Sync compatible displays. And again, you don't need to have one that's been certified to use it. You can turn the feature on in your driver as long as you have a FreeSync display, and it might work. It might, we've seen some reports that it works fine on some displays that aren't certified. We've seen others that say there's problems. There's flickering and other issues and artifacts and stuff. But it's up to you. You can turn it on and test it yourself. So there's no need to wait for NVIDIA to bless your display before you try this. But yeah, check that out. It's good to see that feature expanding in support. So anybody have any other thoughts on this program or any other of the features in this new driver?
I'm just scrolling down the list on their site, and one nice thing is that the monitors they've picked to be G-Sync compatible, they all have a pretty wide refresh range. Like the lowest one I'm seeing, I think, is 48 to 144, and we have like 30 to 144 or 48 to 240. So pretty wide ranges where there's a lot of monitors out there that have a very small refresh range. So those will not be on this list. That was one of their criteria.
Good to see it expanding still.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I think they just weren't selling as many G-Sync displays as they wanted to, because it is the G-Sync, especially when you have a monitor brand or model that has both a FreeSync and a G-Sync option. Those G-Sync options were so much more expensive than their FreeSync counterparts, and so this still allows NVIDIA to offer this as a feature, and they're still selling the GPUs, and I think it's good. And then plus now, if you do go out and if you're an NVIDIA card owner, you buy a FreeSync display and you're able to use this, you can then transition to an AMD card down the road and not have to go buy a new monitor to maintain support for variable refresh. So pretty cool there. All right, what's next here? All right, Jeremy's got a story for us on some news about 5G rollouts. Apparently, some comments about the practicality. Yep.
Wireless is tough.
It is.
Yeah, this 5G has been one hell of a launch. So we've already had T-Mo and AT&T going at it for 5GE, which was like 5G but not. We've had Qualcomm and Apple make up, which is just truly shocking. And now, because of the way that some of the higher speed 5G, which is of course what's being advertised, it turns out it's not even going to be rolled out across entire cities, because millimeter wave, which is the as opposed to like the 600 megahertz and beyond that this mostly sits at for long range transmission, the millimeter wave stuff, anything blocks it. A window will degrade it. A door will flat out block it completely. So you're going to need line of sight to a tower and hope like hell the bird doesn't fly by it, because it is very, very sensitive to interruption, being, a millimeter wave carrying your data. So it's looking like when it gets rolled out, it will be in certain areas of major cities. Now, the larger wavelengths will be, of course, available as a 4G sort of spread out. You'll eventually see it in rural communities and that, but they'll never see the advertised speeds that we've all been hearing about for 5G, because all of that was based on perfect conditions on something that really is going to be incredibly limited. You're really not going to get this sort of benefit unless you luck out and are sitting near a repeater. It also, in that, was an interesting fact that some of the frequencies that the 5G will be working on are also in the water band. So they're significantly affected by water. And not only is this going to mean that, heavy fog, dense cloud cover is going to degrade, not kill, but degrade your signal over a long period, or long lengths of distance being traveled. It's going to screw around with weather forecasting, because all of a sudden the sensors that they're using that are bouncing out and looking for the return of these specific bandwidths are actually going to be receiving 5G signal that's being blanketed ubiquitously across the area. And so what may look like a giant storm cloud rolling in, or a tornado, could just be a bunch of people streaming the latest Game of Thrones on their phone. It's going to be ugly from the looks of it. Like, we've got some benefits out of it, but overall 5G is going to be really, really interesting to sell. And at this point, there is a phone that, if you buy an adapter for it, will be 5G. And if you're really, I don't know of any others. All I know is that there's that one model that you can get an adapter for. It's an LG. And other than that, you're not going to find a network supporting 5G unless you are within one of the test areas, of which Hawaii was one. I think there's a couple other U.S. cities as well.
Yeah, Chicago, I
here.
think.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be a nasty rollout.
That's interesting, because so much is being pegged, or so much is relying on 5G in terms of features and services and technologies that are in the works, have been promised. I mean, everything from like Google Stadia and things like that, the game streaming, to the videos that you mentioned, getting your Game of Thrones kicks, to remote surgeries for doctors. Everyone's saying 5G, 5G, 5G. If it's not going to be, if there are problems, or if the super fast, what we think of as 5G, that super fast, super low latency speeds, are only available in tiny pockets, that there's going to be a lot of readjusting and a lot of investments that are going to feel it if they don't pan out.
It's going to be a little bit better than 4G for the most part, from the looks of it.
Yeah.
Of course, we don't have it, so this would be incorrect.
I have a vision of 5G drones just following people around. Like, your own little microsite is a drone that's about 3 feet above your head, the satellite dish on it, and it's just providing you with your bandwidth wherever you go. But they're
personal area network to an extreme.
Yeah. And just forego the wireless
connect
connection
to it?
for
Oh,
ultimate
Bluetooth,
reliability.
Yeah.
For ultimate reliability, though, just have a cord dangling down and just directly attached to you somewhere on your person.
There you go. And they'll need that because we'll be so fixated on our phones, we'll continue to walk into traffic. Like it'll even be worse than it is now. So the
Right,
cord
it'll tug on you if you're actually.
pull you back when
Yeah.
you take the wrong step. So
Unfortunately, its geolocation is on 5G, and so is the cars. So
oh
Yeah.
yes.
lag
And
kills,
all buildings will
let's say.
definitely. Yeah.
Yep. It'll be a whole new meaning to the word dead zone.
Oh.
Oh, all right. Let's see. We've got one last story here. I think I got the tabs out of order. Here we go. Something else Jeremy found for us. Some new capacities for micro SD cards. Lexar 1 terabyte.
It's a demo. You're not allowed to buy it. But yeah, it is 1 terabyte in your normal SDXC form factor. And if you look on it, you can see that A2, which you may remember 2 or so years ago, Al sort of dug into what all of these classes mean. And there's more than you might think. So this is an A2 or a class 10, because you have to have 2 names for everything now, which means you're guaranteed 4,000 IOPS random read, 2,000 IOPS random write, and about 10 megabytes of sequential write. Which is good because, if you've got a terabyte, you're going to be filling it up with HD stuff. They're sort of describing it as about 500,000 pictures or 80 days of recorded video. Again, all on this thing the size of your thumbnail. It is wild and wacky, considering how much you used to have to pay for even 128 or 256 gig one.
Oh yeah. Yep. That's nuts.
And how much do we have to pay for this?
Well, it's if you have to ask. Now, right now it's a prototype. They're thinking about releasing it, but they're probably going, so that's gonna retail for how much? Okay, maybe
I think
what are the 480 gig ones looking at right now? They're slightly under $200, I think.
Yeah, they're let me see.
50 cents a gig or so the last time I think I looked.
140 for a Samsung 512 gigabyte, but it does not have the same speed rating. This is nowhere near. Well, no, it's a U3. This is a U3.
Okay, so it's not bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be hard to justify that without being, a professional videographer.
Well, for now,
Or just someone who likes having 80 gigs worth of, or 80 hours worth of continual data monitoring going on around them.
Well, they need something to record all those 8K vlogs that they'll be shooting on their Snapdragon 10 series smartphones. So
and streaming over 5G to someone else.
Well, not too far away though, because the network's only about a square mile. But awesome. All right, well, we'll keep an eye on Lexar, and I'm sure Samsung and others will be hot on their heels at those capacities. So I think that's it. I think that's the last news story for the show. So let's jump into our picks of the week. I just need to pull Sebastian's up here because he got his in late.
He's late. He's always late.
Yep.
No cookie for you.
His wife.
The way I roll.
She's
Jim
more
hates
late.
it.
Right. Wait a minute. Now I'm missing. Oh, nuts. I'm sorry. Too many tabs open.
I'm looking at your pick.
I can't get back to the. Oh, nuts. Wait, we're going to take a quick.
No satisfaction.
We need to take a quick technical difficulties break while I reload the show notes. It lost it. It just I can't pull it back up.
It sounds like a personal problem.
All right, so there's Jeremy's, and there's Sebastian's. I'm missing Josh's. I got it here. Okay, I lost it for a second there.
I've lost it like 8 years ago. Yeah. Never regained it back.
I'm not sure I had it.
I know I never had it.
Okay, I got it. Here we go. I'm back. I mean, I'm back in terms. I'm technically back, not mentally back, but here we go. Okay, so my pick, as Jeremy indicated, is interesting, and I'll explain. So first of all, this pick was recommended to me by Brett, who is friend of the site and our web developer, who has been working tirelessly for weeks to get our new site up. So he set this over. It's a Micron SSD, SATA SSD. So not the fastest. If you recall, Alan reviewed, he didn't review this capacity, but I don't believe, but he reviewed this class of drives a year or so ago. They're not very fast, but they're cheap. And this is a 4 terabyte SATA SSD for $430. It's over at OWC. They have, occasionally they'll have sales on third-party products that they have in stock. And so that's at $430 for 4 terabytes. That's a little bit less than the equivalent 4 terabyte drives, like the QLC drives from Samsung, and the what's the other brand that has that SanDisk. So Western Digital / SanDisk. So there are some 4 terabyte SSDs out there. They're in the $500 range. So this is a little bit cheaper than the ones I've seen. So again, not super fast, but it's going to be faster than a spinning disk for sure. So if you're looking for if you need like a mass drive to just dump your game files on, or video files, and you want them to perform a little bit better than a spinning hard drive, this is one of the best prices I've seen at this capacity for this drive. And we use the 2 terabyte version of this. We used it as a Steam cache drive in our NAS. If you recall, back in the old days before the Intel Exodus, Ken and I set up a Steam cache on one of our NASs at the office, did a little article on it, and we were using the 2 terabyte version of this to store our cache files. Worked fine. You're still getting several hundred megabytes a second of speed, low latency in terms of, or compared to spinning drives. So that's the Micron 4 terabyte SATA SSD for about $430 over at OWC. All right, next up we've got Jeremy.
No, I'm not really into driving games. There is somebody who is, and they did a review of this and gave it quite good marks. And I happen to notice that it's on sale for 50% off with the wheel and the foot pedals. So if you're looking for dumping into Josh's little... Which one are you doing right now? Dirt 2?
Dirt Rally 2.0.
Yeah. But he's got a league going, so if you need to upgrade your equipment with something that's not super top of the line, but is really good, for 250 Canadian, I think it's about 215 or so American right now, it means you can get in there without a huge investment.
I think I saw it for sale for 182 a couple of weeks ago here in Amazon. From Amazon.
Oh, that good old Amazon.
Amazon.
All right. So that's the Logitech.
It's a good wheel.
Yeah. Yeah. And check out Josh's review. We'll link the review as well when we post the show notes linking to this. So check out Josh's reviews. And this is the Logitech G29 driving force racing wheel. And this is the
PC and PS4.
Yes. They have, because of the different control schemes, they have PC/Xbox and PC/PS3, PS4 variants. So this is the PlayStation and PC version. So be aware of that if you want to use it on your console as well. All right, Josh, what have you got for us?
This was brought to my attention today. It's an interesting kind of product. It's a battery pack. It's 6,700 milliamps. It's also a SD card reader that you can plug in a storage drive to, whether it's an SSD or a Spinny or whatever. So if you're on the road, you're a photographer, you're recording videos, you're doing outdoorsy stuff, and you've got your Hero Pro or whatever, and you want to quickly transfer that SD card to a drive, you can use this. It's also wireless. it does pretty damn much everything. If you were going to a conference and you were taking a ton of pictures and you want, that kind of functionality, it does damn near everything. It's kind of bizarre. It's an all-in-one thing that has battery and transferability and wireless, and it's nuts. Media share. Who would have thunk? And it's only $60. So it does a ton of things. I'd be
Yeah, it's
interested
nice.
to see this in action and everything you could do, but for not a whole lot of money, you have a ton of things that this little product will do. It
And
will not make julienne fries.
well, not with that attitude.
No.
But
You said it's a power bank, so just plug in your USB powered julienner and away you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
See,
No brainer.
And 4.5 stars, assuming you can trust the reviews still. 4.5 stars out of 5 with 120 reviews on this product. So worth checking out. That's the Rav Power File Hub. Travel router, wireless SD card reader, connected portable SSD hard drive. I think.
I know. It does all kinds of crap. It's weird.
We're in that zone where too many companies are trying to game SEO by putting putting like products features in the product name. It's getting out of hand.
but on Amazon, it seems like everything has that. There's like 30 or 40 words, and it's a wireless charging pad.
Yep. And then it gets to the point where they want to get like it's something for iPhone 7 or 8, but not 10 or 10s, and so they'll put in the product name because they want to get those searches too, not 10s in parentheses or something.
1-point font.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, Sebastian, what have you got for us?
Not very exciting. It's not hardware. It's an audiobook. I finished listening to just yesterday. Journey to the Center of the Earth. So not exactly a new book. It's the Jules Verne classic. This one was read by Tim Curry. There's more than one version on Audible. This is fantastic. I have not heard an audiobook read by Tim Curry before, and he is just remarkably good. He made it a lot more engaging than I think it otherwise would have been. So if you have any interest at all, if you've ever done like an Audible trial or anything like that, there's some stuff on there where it kind of transcends your typical book on tape kind of format. This one does not have music, does not have sound effects, but you kind of wouldn't realize that listening through it because he's obviously, if you know Tim Curry at all, very, very distinctive voice.
Good
And he
at
does
building
character voices.
anticipation. He's very good at building anticipation.
He is.
He's an international treasure. I love Tim Curry.
He surely is.
Now I just
They
try
should
to
listen to
think of
more of
Rocky
his
Horror
work on
Picture
Audible,
Show
but-
things.
Yes.
Now you couldn't have waited till a week where Audible was a sponsor, huh?
No, but I have an
They have
endless
more than one
supply,
book.
so they do.
Yeah, that's true. Although I wonder,
I'm
I
listening
honestly,
constantly.
I don't know how long when they are a sponsor, I don't know how long their codes last. So if you want to try this, give it a shot. Go to audible.com/PCPer and use offer code PCPer and see what happens. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's, if you're a new customer, you'll get it free either way. And they are not a sponsor this week, and I am personally a member paying with my own money. So
Yeah, I
all
bought
those
this book
disclaimers.
as well with
Yeah.
my monthly credit.
But hey, give it a shot. If you're not a member, you want to try it out. See if our old offer code still works. I have no idea. But all right, well, that's the show. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Again, we record Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern, usually. That's 2 a.m. Thursday morning UTC. And you can find us at our YouTube page where we stream live, and then we have the edited version of the podcast with the sidebar and the topics and all the notes. That goes up usually the day after, the morning after. That's there. If you and you can find that posted both at our YouTube page or at PCPro.com. We have an article page for each show where you can get all the links and all that, the good stuff there. Join our mailing list at pcpro.com/subscribe to know when we go live. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, stay tuned. Not this coming weekend, but the following weekend, there might be a little bit of downtime over that weekend. There was some unplanned downtime this past weekend. Damn DNS. But assuming all goes well, the weekend after this coming weekend, you should see a very, very different PCPer.com. We're very excited to finally get that done, moving to WordPress, and yes, fingers crossed. So we'll look forward to that. And yeah, speaking of our downtime this last weekend, I can't recall right off the top of my head here who said it, but one of our Discord members put a lovely graphic in the public Discord channel when we realized it was DNS, and it was a picture of a haiku, and it said, "It's not DNS. There's no way it's DNS. It was DNS." And so I appreciate that. Whoever posted that, thank you. That turned a very stressful Saturday night into a little bit brighter for me. So thanks for joining us. I hope everyone has a fantastic week, and we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.
See ya.
All right.
We'd return you to your regularly scheduled hockey game, but the Hurricanes just took it 2 or 3 seconds ago.
Oh,
In second overtime.
Awesome. I mean, look,
Sorry,
I
Washington fans.
I got nothing against the Caps. I love Ovi. I lived in the Washington D.C. area for 3 or 4 years. They're not my hometown team, but I was glad they won last year. But I'm also it's great to see the Hurricanes move on. That's a fan base that's been through a lot, and they've done a lot of cool stuff this year, storm surges and all that. So awesome to see a lot of teams upsetting, or a lot of upsets, I guess, this season so far. I gotta say, I'm pulling for the
small children.
That would be my cat. Apparently, he was a Washington fan.
Oh,
no,
nice.
Russian machine never breaks.
Yeah.
Man,
It was fun to think back. The Russian Five, the Detroit Red Wings, when they got them in the early '90s, and it totally revamped that franchise, and they were just kicking ass.
Well,
Fedorov.
Yzerman's back in Detroit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as a GM now. So, or it was a GM or president. I forget.
I think he's GM.
Shit.
Yeah,
I don't know, but they've fallen far.
Oh well, they
Wings.
were good for so many years, and every team's got to go through a little rebuilding. And I
It's
mean,
like
you look
the
at
Avs at
oh yeah,
'96 through 2002.
yep. And now they're finally back, moving
Getting
on,
back.
and
Yep.
they're going up against the Sharks, I guess, next. Who just
Nice.
who just handed the Golden Knights their walking papers last night. So pretty cool. I'm rooting for the Islanders though, because I just want to see them rub it in the face of Tavares and the Leafs fan base and management, because
Acceptable.
Toronto as a city, lovely, wonderful city. I used to go there all the time growing up in Buffalo, just 90 minutes up the QEW. Beautiful city.
More Canada, mate.
I've been around. I've been up to Montreal, Quebec, Ottawa. I haven't been to the West Coast yet. I got to get out to Western Canada, but the Toronto Maple Leafs fan base is a nightmare. And they invade our arena every time every Sabres game at home against the Maple Leafs is a Maple Leafs home game for all practical purposes. They come down, and just because they can't afford tickets at it's not Air Canada Center anymore, is it? It's Rogers Center now. But they can't afford their home tickets, so they come down to Buffalo, and normally that's great, but they trash the place every time. They really put to test the stereotype of the lovely, good-natured Canadian. But
Because
Probably
there
made
is
some-
Toronto, not Canada.
yeah, well, okay, fair enough. Fair enough, eh? Well, how do you get 20 Canadians out of a pool? You ask them. All right, everybody out, eh? Okay.
All right.
All right.
All right. So,
All right, guys.
Yep. Good night, everyone in the chat. Thank you for joining us. And
Yes, indeed.
yes, as Ryan Whalen points out, there's going to be a new Stanley Cup champion this year. No more of all the favorites
Yes.
have been eliminated. So all the
Bye-bye,
favorites and recent
Flames.
victors. So awesome. All right. Good night, everybody. Appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Oh, and I got to remember, I got to let the stream run for a second because I've been turning it off.
Oh, right.
And then apparently the actual stream cuts, even though I've waited. There's like a cache somewhere that cuts. So I'm waiting. Good night, everyone. And I'm going to wait a few seconds. Keep waiting. Keep waiting. Hopefully that's enough time.